If you're watching this, it means that this channel has now passed 1,000 subscribers. To everyone who watches my videos, whether subscribed or not, thank you very much. For this milestone, I wanted to take you all on a world tour. We'll visit 7 countries and discover 16 random or obscure automotive facts along the way. So sit back and prepare for takeoff. Since most of my viewers are based in North America, let's start there. But not in the place you'd expect. Our journey starts in Mexico. The Mexican car market has some interesting quirks. For example, instead of getting the Chevrolet Cavalier, they got the Pontiac Sunburst, badged as a Chevy Cavalier. But on the reverse side, while the Daewoo Matiz got Chevy branding in most of the world, in Mexico it was badged as the Pontiac Matiz, later known as the G2. The Matiz G2 lasted from 2001 all the way until 2010, when GM shut down the whole Pontiac brand. Also, the Pontiac G5 was called the G4 in Mexico for some reason. Buick and Oldsmobile didn't have a dealer network in Mexico. However, they both offered their A-body sedans and coupes there through Chevrolet dealers. The cars were usually just called the Century and Cutlass, but they still had their Buick and Oldsmobile badging. The cars also kept the older 3.1-litre V6, which had been superseded in the US and Canada. In addition, the Mexican Cutlass had a twist. It was available as a sports sedan called the Eurosport. It had a nice body kit with wheels from the Pontiac Grand Am, and you could even buy it with a 5-speed manual. It's a shame they didn't sell this model up north. Going further south, we come to Argentina, where we find another GM oddity. GMC is of course GM's commercial vehicle brand, producing rebadged Chevy trucks and vans sold at Buick dealers. But in the early 90s, the brand had one passenger car in its lineup, the GMC Chevette. It was of course a rebadged Chevrolet Chevette. Customers could also buy a ute version called the GMC 500, a rebadged version of the Chevy 500 from Brazil. In fact, it was built in Brazil, but it was only sold in Argentina, at Chevrolet and Renault dealers. Why did they give it GMC badges? Quite simply, it was because offering a Chevy model at a Renault dealer would have just been weird. South America likes utes as much as Aussies do. Argentina even had a ute with the 3-pointed star. Mercedes-Benz has assembled vehicles in Argentina for decades, and for this market, they even made a ute out of the W115 220D. It was available as a single cab, which looks pretty cool, and as a double cab, which looks like a sedan with no boot lid. Argentina also produced the Ford Falcon, which started as a single worldwide design and eventually grew into 3 distinct versions in North America, Argentina, and Australia. The North American industry abandoned the car after 10 years, but the other 2 markets kept it much longer. The difference is, the Australian Falcon got redesigned every once in a while, but the Argentine Falcon just got facelifts. Down to its final year, 1991, it was still based on the original platform from 1960. The final version had taillights from the Taunus or Cortina. It never got a V8 though, only the inline-6. It's now time to leave Argentina and cross the Pacific Ocean. We arrive in the land down under. The Australian Falcon also had some antiquated features in the early 90s. While the sedan and wagon models got redesigned for 1988, the ute and van versions stuck with the old body from 1979. They simply adopted front ends from the new models. These commercial vehicles stuck with some pretty old-fashioned mechanicals. Until 1990, the standard transmission was still a 3-speed column-shift manual. Yes, that's right, the old 3 on the tree. In 1990. The optional 5-speed floor shifter fully replaced it in 91, but the straight-six engine still had a carburetor until 1993. The commercial and passenger versions were finally reintegrated in 1999 and stayed that way until the end of production in 2016. Australia also has some odd vehicle rules. Starting in the late 50s, some Australian market cars had amber reverse lights. Locally assembled American models only had 2 rear light housings, but Australia required indicators or turn signals to be amber. while reverse lights were optional until 1972 and were allowed to be amber. So the reverse lights were combined with the rear indicators. Even some Australian-designed models used the setup well into the 70s. They started switching to separate white reverse lights in the 80s, and by 1989, Australian design rules required them. Now to cross the Tasman Sea to Australia's favourite neighbour. Even though Australia doesn't allow red indicators, New Zealand does. As a result, locally assembled American models kept their red combination lamps, unlike the Australian versions. The same goes for private imports. Australia requires them to be retrofitted with amber lights, but New Zealand doesn't. However, these days, new cars in NZ always use amber indicators. That's because car makers send the same specification of car to both New Zealand and Australia. It's the same with trailers. Most of the trailer light modules available here are designed for the Australian market. That said, you can occasionally see a truck and trailer with red indicators here, but they're usually separate from the brake lights. New Zealand has one of the most diverse car scenes in the world. In any non-specific car event, or even in the car park for said event, you can find British classics, American classics, Japanese icons, Australian muscle, European dream machines, even the occasional Lada. Also, fun fact, New Zealand has the highest Mustang ownership rate in the world, but remarkably, they never crash. Second-hand JDM imports started to invade in the late 90s, and now they make up more than half of New Zealand's vehicle fleet. In recent years, there's also been an influx of new Chinese models. NZ is an automotive melting pot. New Zealanders have a weird way of saying Subaru. Yes, we say it like that. And I might add, it's actually more accurate. When pronouncing Japanese names, most English speakers tend to emphasize the U, hence Subaru. But in the Japanese language, the U sound isn't as prominent. In fact, at the end of a word, it's practically silent. In Japanese, it's pronounced Subaru. So in the English-speaking world, the Kiwi version of Subaru comes the closest. Speaking of Japanese cars, let's go to the land of the rising sun for our next leg. Japan has vans based on stripped-down station wagons. They're most often painted white with black plastic bumpers, and they usually have just the bare essential taillights and a single reverse light mounted on the back door. One example is the Honda Partner, which was first based on the Orthia and later the Airwave. A more popular example is the Nissan AD, based on the Wingroad. This segment has a lot of badge engineering. For example, the Nissan AD has been rebadged as a Mitsubishi and as a Mazda. Mitsubishi once made a V8, in collaboration with Hyundai. They only used it in the Proud Air and the Dignity, JDM exclusive luxury cars. Mitsubishi's models only lasted for 15 months and sold poorly, but Hyundai's version, the Equus, sold much better. It even got another generation that was developed solely by Hyundai, and it was eventually succeeded by the Genesis G90. Toyota made a V12 in 1997. They produced it for 20 years, but it was exclusively for the G50 Century. They really should have put this engine in the Lexus LS to truly compete with the BMW 7 Series and Mercedes S-Class, and maybe even Bentley. Can you imagine a V12 powered Lexus? That would have been cool. Honda, on the other hand, has never even made a V8 outside Formula 1. Their only V8 powered car was a rebadged Land Rover Discovery called the Honda Crossroad, which used the Rover V8. Interestingly, that engine was descended from the old Buick V8, which also became the basis for the legendary 3800 V6. Crossing the Sea of Japan, we come to the Korean peninsula. We can find an unexpected vehicle on South Korean streets, the Holden Statesman. Starting in 2005, Holden exported the WL Statesman to Korea with Daewoo badging. They didn't get the V8 though, only the Alloy-Tech V6. When the WM replaced it, the name changed to Daewoo Veritas, and it got the more luxurious rear seats from the Chinese Buick Park Avenue. It was discontinued in 2011, along with the Daewoo brand. Moving inland to Central Asia, our last stop is Uzbekistan. Yes, this place has a car industry, although there's only one passenger car manufacturer. Started by Daewoo in the early 90s, it later came under the GM umbrella. In fact, after the Daewoo name was discontinued in its home country, it stuck around for a few more years in Uzbekistan. GM Uzbekistan manufactured the Daewoo Nexia and Matiz, and later the Chevrolet Epica, Malibu, Lacetti and Cobalt, among others. And they export across Central Asia and Eastern Europe. They also make a rebadged Suzuki Carry. When the Daewoo brand closed down for good and Chevrolet left Europe, GM Uzbekistan set up a new brand in 2015 called Ravon to keep selling their Chevy and Daewoo models in Eastern Europe. Chevy came back 5 years later and the Ravon lineup got rebranded. The Chevrolet marque has an effective monopoly in Uzbekistan because they're made by the country's only car maker and imported cars are quite expensive. As of 2019, the company is fully government owned and it's now called Automotive. They still make Chevrolets under license, and they recently started making cars for BYD as well. Now we come to the end of our world tour. Thank you for making it this far. I hope you found it somewhat interesting. If you learned something new, even better. Once again, thank you all very much for helping the channel to reach this milestone. Feel free to check out my in-depth videos about more automotive topics. I'll have a couple of suggestions for you on the end screen. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video.